Number 1. It happened on a Sunday morning under perfect weather, on the day of rest, the 7th of December 1941. At 7:48 a.m., 183 Japanese aircraft appeared over Oahu and transformed an American naval base into a graveyard in less than 2 hours. Number 2. The attack was not unexpected. American intelligence had been tracking Japanese diplomatic communications for months through a program codenamed Magic. They knew war was coming. They just didn't know where or when. Number 3. On the 27th of November 1941, Washington sent a war warning to all Pacific commands. It stated that Japan would likely attack the Philippines, Thailand or Malaya. Pearl Harbor wasn't on the list. Number 4. The Japanese strike force left Japan on the 26th of November 1941. 6 aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, Shokaku and Zuikaku, sailed in complete radio silence across the North Pacific. They were never detected. Number 5. Admiral Yamamoto planned the attack. He had studied at Harvard and served as a naval attaché in Washington. He knew America's industrial capacity. When asked about invading the United States, he said, "I can run wild for 6 months. After that, I have no expectation of success." Number 6. Yamamoto opposed war with America. He told Japan's leaders that attacking the United States would awaken a sleeping giant. He was overruled. The decision was made. He would deliver the blow. Number 7. The Japanese fleet travelled 3,500 miles across the Pacific without being spotted. They maintained strict radio silence and refueled at sea. The northern route was chosen specifically because it was too rough for merchant shipping. No one would be there to see them. Number 8. On the morning of December 7, the Japanese carriers were 230 miles north of Oahu. At 6 a.m., the first wave of 183 aircraft launched into the dawn. Fighters, dive bombers, torpedo bombers, and high-level bombers. They flew south in perfect formation. Number 9. At 7:02 a.m., a U.S. Army radar station at Opener Point detected a large group of aircraft approaching from the north, 132 miles away. Private Joseph Lockard reported it to the information center at Fort Shafter. Number 10. The officer on duty, Lieutenant Kermit Tyler, was informed of the radar contact. He assumed it was a flight of B-17 bombers expected from California. He told the radar operators, "Don't worry about it." The warning was dismissed. Number 11. The B-17 seconds were actually arriving that same morning. 12 bombers flew into the middle of the attack, unarmed and low on fuel. One was shot down. The rest scattered and landed wherever they could find an open runway. Number 12. At 7:48 a.m., Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, leading the first attack wave, looked down at Pearl Harbor. The American fleet sat at anchor, undisturbed. He radioed back to the carriers. "Tora, Tora, Tora!" The code, meaning complete surprise, had been achieved. Number 13. The primary targets were the 8 battleships of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, moored along Battleship Row on the southeast side of Ford Island. They were lined up like targets in a shooting gallery. USS Nevada, USS Arizona, USS Tennessee, USS West Virginia, USS Maryland, USS Oklahoma, USS California, and USS Pennsylvania. Number 14. The Japanese attack plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Torpedo bombers would strike first, targeting the battleship's vulnerable hulls below the waterline. Dive bombers would follow, targeting flight decks and superstructures. High-altitude bombers would drop armor-piercing bombs converted from 16-inch naval shells. Number 15. The torpedo attack was the most devastating. Japanese pilots had modified their Type 91 aerial torpedoes to run in the shallow waters of Pearl Harbor, only 40 feet deep. American naval planners had believed torpedo attacks were impossible in such shallow water. They were wrong. Number 16. USS Oklahoma was hit by 5 torpedoes in the first 10 minutes. The battleship rolled over and capsized, trapping over 400 men inside. Rescue crews could hear them banging on the hull for days. Only 32 were cut free before the tapping stopped. Number 17. USS Arizona was struck by 8 bombs. One 1,760-pound armor-piercing bomb penetrated the forward magazine, detonating over 1 million pounds of gunpowder. The explosion lifted the ship out of the water. 1,177 men died in seconds. The ship sank in 9 minutes. Number 18. The fireball from Arizona's explosion was so intense that sailors on nearby ships were burned. Burning oil spread across the water. Men jumped overboard and swam through flames. Some drowned, others burned. A few made it to shore, skin hanging from their bodies. Number 19. Seaman First Class James Richard Ward was trapped below deck on Oklahoma when it capsized. He and several others found an air pocket. In total darkness, standing in water up to their chests, they waited. Rescue crews cut through the hull and pulled Ward out after 32 hours. He lived to be 90 years old. Number 20. USS Nevada was the only battleship to get underway during the attack. At 8:40 a.m., with her captain ashore and most of her officers at breakfast, Nevada's crew slipped her moorings and headed for the harbour entrance. Japanese pilots saw her moving and swarmed her like sharks. Number 21. Nevada took 6 bomb hits and 1 torpedo. She was on fire and taking on water, but her crew refused to abandon ship. Fearing Nevada would sink in the harbour channel and block it completely, Harbour Control ordered her to beach herself. She ran aground at Hospital Point, still fighting. Number 22. Doris Dory Miller was a mess attendant aboard USS West Virginia, one of the few positions open to black sailors at the time. When the attack began, he carried wounded sailors to safety, then manned a .50 caliber anti-aircraft gun, despite having no training on the weapon. He fired until he ran out of ammunition. He received the Navy Cross. He died in 1943 when his ship was torpedoed. He was 24. Number 23. USS West. Virginia took 7 torpedoes and 2 bombs. She settled upright in the mud, her decks awash. 70 men escaped. 105 died. 3 men were trapped in an airtight compartment deep in the hull. When the ship was raised 16 days later, rescuers found a calendar. The last mark was December 23rd. Number 24. The Arizona still sits at the bottom of Pearl Harbor. The wreck is a war grave, designated as a national memorial. Oil still leaks from the fuel tanks, about a quart per day. Survivors call them the tears of the Arizona. When the last survivor dies, the leaking will outlive them all. Number 25. Battleship Row was not the only target. Japanese dive bombers struck the airfields at Hickam, Wheeler, Bellows and Kaneohe. The goal was to destroy American aircraft before they could take off and fight back. Number 26. At Hickam Field, aircraft were parked wingtip to wingtip in neat rows to prevent sabotage, the primary concern before the attack. When the Japanese arrived, they destroyed 18 aircraft in the first pass. The neat rows became an inferno. Number 27. At Wheeler Field, 42 P-40 fighters were destroyed on the ground. Only a handful got airborne during the attack. 2 pilots, Second Lieutenants George Welch and Kenneth Taylor, raced 10 miles to Halewa Airfield, took off without orders and shot down 7 Japanese planes between them. Number 28. The second wave of 171 Japanese aircraft arrived at 8:54 a.m. By this time, American forces were fighting back. Anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. Smoke obscured targets. The second wave was less effective but more costly. The Japanese lost 20 aircraft in the second wave compared to 9 in the first. Number 29. One Japanese pilot, Zenji Abe, was shot down during the second wave. He crash-landed on Niihau, a small Hawaiian island inhabited by native Hawaiians and one Japanese-American couple. The residents initially treated him as a prisoner, but were unaware of the Pearl Harbor attack. When they learned the truth 3 days later, the situation turned violent. A native Hawaiian, Ben Kanahele, wrestled the pilot's gun away and killed him. Kanahele was shot 3 times but survived. Number 30. The attack lasted 110 minutes. By 9:45 a.m. the last Japanese aircraft disappeared over the horizon. Behind them, Pearl Harbor burned. Black smoke rose 20,000 feet into the air. It could be seen from 50 miles away. Number 31. The Japanese lost 29 aircraft, 5 midget submarines and 64 men. It was a tactical masterpiece. Yamamoto had delivered exactly what he promised, a devastating blow that crippled American naval power in the Pacific. Number 32. But the attack was incomplete. The 3 U.S. aircraft carriers, USS Enterprise, USS Lexington and USS Saratoga, were at sea. Enterprise was returning from Wake Island. Lexington was ferrying aircraft to Midway. Saratoga was in California. All 3 survived. They would form the backbone of the American counterattack. Number 33. The Japanese also failed to destroy Pearl Harbor's fuel storage tanks, which held 4.5 million barrels of oil. Had they been destroyed, the U.S. Pacific Fleet would have been forced to retreat to California, extending the war by years. Number 34. The harbor's repair facilities were untouched. Dry docks, machine shops and the submarine base all survived intact. This allowed the U.S. Navy to recover faster than the Japanese anticipated. 6 of the 8 damaged battleships were eventually raised, repaired and returned to service. Number 35. The final toll. 2,403 Americans killed, 1,178 wounded. 18 ships sunk or damaged. 188 aircraft destroyed. It was the deadliest attack on American soil until the 11th of September 2001. Number 36. Of the 2,403 dead, 1,177 were crew of the Arizona. Another 429 died on Oklahoma. Nearly half of all American deaths occurred on just 2 ships. Number 37. 68 civilians were killed, most by American anti-aircraft shells that fell back to Earth unexploded. 1 shell hit a civilian neighborhood, killing an entire family. Number 38. Among the dead was Ensign Francisco Chacon, the first American officer killed in World War II. He was aboard the destroyer USS Arizona. His body was never recovered. Number 39. The youngest victim was one 6-year-old Robert Leo Uttrick, a civilian shipfitter's apprentice working aboard the Arizona. The oldest was 3-year-old groundskeeper John Thomas Lindsay, killed at Hickam Field by strafing. Number 40. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was having lunch in his study when he received the phone call. Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox told him, "Mr. President, it appears the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor." Roosevelt's first response was disbelief. His second was fury. Number 41. That evening, Roosevelt met with his cabinet and congressional leaders. Secretary of War Henry Stimson called it the most serious disaster to American arms since Bull Run. Roosevelt dictated a draft of his speech to Congress. He wrote it in pencil, crossing out words, searching for the right tone. Number 42. The next day, the 8th of December 1941, Roosevelt addressed a joint session of Congress. His speech lasted 6 minutes. He called December 7th, a date which will live in infamy. The phrase almost didn't make it. His first draft read, a date which will live in world history. His edit sharpened it into legend. Number 43. Congress declared war on Japan 1 hour after Roosevelt's speech. The vote was 82 to 0 inches the Senate and 388 to 1 inch the House. The lone dissenter was Representative Jeanette Rankin of Montana, a pacifist who had also voted against entering World War I. Number 44. 3 days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States, honoring their alliance with Japan. America was now fully committed to a 2-front global war. Yamamoto's warning had come true. The sleeping giant was awake. Number 45. In the weeks following Pearl Harbor, the U.S. military enacted mass internment of Japanese Americans. 120,000 people, 2/3 of them, U.S. citizens, were forcibly relocated to internment camps. Families lost homes, businesses and livelihoods. The camps remained open until 1945. Number 46. One Japanese-American soldier, Private Tadao Fuchikami, was killed at Pearl Harbor defending Schofield Barracks. He was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart. His family was sent to an internment camp while grieving his death. Number 47. Not a single Japanese American in Hawaii or on the mainland was ever convicted of espionage or sabotage during World War II. In 1988, the US government formally apologized and paid reparations to surviving internees. Number 48. The day after Pearl Harbor, enlistment offices were overwhelmed. Young men lined up around city blocks, waiting to enlist. In December 1941 alone, 137,000 Americans volunteered. By 1945, over 16 million Americans had served. Number 49. Hollywood actor Jimmy Stewart enlisted in the Army Air Corps. He flew 20 combat missions over Germany and rose to the rank of Brigadier General. Ted Williams, the baseball star, became a fighter pilot. They weren't anomalies, the entire nation mobilized. Number 50. The phrase, "Remember Pearl Harbor," became the rallying cry of the war. It appeared on posters, propaganda films, and war bonds advertisements. American factories painted it on the bombs they produced. Japanese sailors would see those words before they died. Number 51. American war production after Pearl Harbor was staggering. In 1941, the US produced 3,000 aircraft. In 1944, it produced 96,000. Henry Kaiser's shipyards built Liberty ships in an average of 42 days. One ship, the SS Robert E. Peary, was built in 4 days, 15 hours and 29 minutes. Number 52. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers. Rosie the Riveter became the symbol of American women building tanks, ships and planes. By 1945, women made up 36% of the civilian labor force. 6 million took jobs in defense factories. Number 53. Salvage. Operations at Pearl Harbor began immediately. Navy divers worked in pitch-black water, navigating through flooded compartments filled with bodies and debris. It was gruesome, dangerous work. Many divers suffered psychological breakdowns. The work continued for years. Number 54. USS California was raised in March 1942 after being submerged for 3 months. When pumped dry, workers found sailors still at their battle stations, killed instantly by the initial torpedo hits. Their bodies had been preserved by the cold salt water. Number 55. The recovery of USS Oklahoma took 8 months. Salvage crews attached 21 winches to the capsized hull and slowly rotated the 29,000-ton ship upright. It was the largest and most complex salvage operation ever attempted at the time. Oklahoma never returned to service. She was too damaged. She was sold for scrap in 1946 and sank under tow in a storm. Number 56. USS Nevada was refloated, repaired, and served with distinction for the rest of the war. She bombarded Normandy on D-Day, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. In 1946, she survived 2 atomic bomb tests at Bikini Atoll. The Navy finally sank her in 1948 with naval gunfire and torpedoes. She refused to die easily. Number 57. 5 midget submarines participated in the attack. All 5 were sunk or scuttled. One was captured intact and is now on display at the National Museum of the Pacific War in Texas. Number 58. The first shot of the Pacific War was not fired at Pearl Harbor. At 6:37 a.m., over an hour before the air attack, the destroyer USS Ward detected and sank a Japanese midget submarine trying to enter Pearl Harbor. The warning was filed and ignored. Number 59. The Ward's commanding officer, Lieutenant William Outerbridge, reported the sinking but used ambiguous language. "We have attacked, fired upon, and dropped depth charges upon submarine operating in defensive sea area." Headquarters assumed it was another false alarm. By the time they believed him, bombs were already falling. Number 60. One of the midget submarines, HA-19, ran aground on the east coast of Oahu. Its crew, Ensign Kazuo Sakamaki and Petty Officer Kiyoshi Inagaki, attempted to scuttle it. Inagaki drowned. Sakamaki washed ashore and became the first Japanese prisoner of war captured by the United States. Number 61. Sakamaki was imprisoned for the duration of the war. He expected to be executed and requested it. Instead, he was treated well, which confused and humiliated him. After the war, he returned to Japan, became a businessman, and wrote a memoir expressing shame for being captured. He died in 1999 at age 81, number 62. The Utah, a target ship being used for training, was also sunk during the attack. 58 men died. The wreck still sits in Pearl Harbor, marked by a memorial that few tourists visit. It's the forgotten ship of the attack. Number 63. Chief water tender Peter Tomich, aboard USS Utah, stayed at his post to keep the boilers running so his crewmates could escape as the ship capsized. He was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously. His body was never recovered. Number 64. 15 Medals of Honor were awarded for actions during the Pearl Harbor attack. 5 went to men who died saving others. 10 went to men who fought back with impossible courage. Number 65. Captain Mervyn Bennion, commanding officer of USS West Virginia, was mortally wounded by shrapnel from an armor-piercing bomb that hit USS Tennessee. Knowing he was dying, he refused evacuation and continued directing fire control until he lost consciousness. Doris Miller helped carry him to safety. Bennion died before reaching the aid station. He was 53. Number 66. The chaplains of Pearl Harbor performed impossible duties that day. Father Aloysius Schmidt, aboard USS Oklahoma, helped sailors escape through a porthole as the ship capsized. When it became clear he was too large to fit through himself, he pushed others ahead and drowned. He was 32, number 67. Nurse Annie Fox was the chief nurse at www. Hickam Field. She worked for 12 hours straight, treating burns, shrapnel wounds and trauma cases while bombs fell around the hospital. She was the first woman to receive the Purple Heart for combat. Years later, the award was downgraded to a Bronze Star because military policy didn't allow women to serve in combat. The downgrade stands. Number 68. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Makeshift aid stations were set up in mess halls, hangars and homes. Doctors performed amputations without anesthesia. Blood supplies ran out. Civilians donated on the spot. Some donated so much they passed out. Number 69. Mortuary services were unprepared for mass casualties. Bodies were placed in temporary morgues, warehouses, gymnasiums, anywhere with space. Identification was difficult. Many burned beyond recognition. Some were buried in mass graves and identified years later through forensics. Number 70. The attack changed civilian life in Hawaii immediately. Martial law was declared and remained in effect until 1944. Blackout curtains became mandatory. Curfews were enforced. Barbed wire appeared on beaches. Gas masks were issued to children. Hawaii went from tropical paradise to armed fortress overnight. Number 71. Fear of a Japanese invasion was real. In the days after Pearl Harbor, false reports of enemy aircraft, submarines and paratroopers caused panic. On December 8th, anti-aircraft gunners fired at Phantom aircraft over Pearl Harbor for 30 minutes, killing 6 people with falling shells. Number 72. Japanese Admiral Yamamoto never intended to invade Hawaii. The attack's goal was to destroy the US Pacific Fleet, forcing America to negotiate peace. Instead, it guaranteed total war. Yamamoto knew this. After Pearl Harbor, he reportedly said, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." Number 73. There is no reliable record of Yamamoto saying those exact words. It may be apocryphal. But whether he said it or not, the sentiment was true. He understood America in ways his superiors did not. He was right to be afraid. Number 74. The Japanese celebration was short-lived. By June 1942, 6 months after Pearl Harbor, the US Navy defeated Japan at the Battle of Midway. 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, including Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, which had attacked Pearl Harbor, were sunk. Japan never recovered. Number 75. Yamamoto himself was killed in 1943. American codebreakers intercepted his travel itinerary. 18 P-38 fighters ambushed his plane over Bougainville. Yamamoto's aircraft was shot down. He was found in the wreckage, still strapped to his seat, hand on his sword. He was 59. Number 76. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, who led the air attack, survived the war. He became a Christian missionary and toured the United States speaking about reconciliation. In 1953, he returned to Pearl Harbor and met with American veterans. Some forgave him, others did not. Number 77. Many Pearl Harbor survivors refused to speak about the attack for decades. Post-traumatic stress disorder was not formally recognized until 1980. For years, men who woke screaming from nightmares were told to get over it. Some never did. Number 78. Ray Emery, a survivor of the USS Honolulu, spent decades identifying unknown remains from Pearl Harbor. He worked with military forensic experts, cross-referencing records and DNA. Because of his work, dozens of sailors were finally given their names back and returned to their families for burial. Number 79. The last living survivor of USS Arizona, Lou Conter, died in 2024 at the age of 102. He was a quartermaster aboard the ship. He escaped the explosion, returned to save shipmates, then went on to fly combat missions in the Pacific. He spent his later years speaking at schools, ensuring students knew what happened that morning. Number 80. The USS Arizona Memorial was dedicated in 1962. It sits above the sunken ship, accessible only by boat. Over 1.8 million people visit each year. Oil still rises from the wreck below. Visitors are asked to remain silent. Number 81. Surviving crew members of the Arizona can choose to be interred on the ship with their fallen shipmates. Divers place their cremated remains inside the wreck. It's called joining the ship's company. Over 40 survivors have chosen this. The last will be interred sometime in the coming years. Number 82. December 7th is National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Flags fly at half-staff. At military bases worldwide, TAPS is played at 7:48 a.m. Hawaii time, the moment the attack began. Every year there are fewer survivors to hear it. Number 83. The Pearl Harbor attack changed American foreign policy forever. Before December 7th, isolationism was the dominant political force. After, America embraced internationalism and built a permanent global military presence. Pearl Harbor is why there are US bases in Germany, Japan and South Korea today. Number 84. The surprise attack violated no international law. Japan and the United States were not at war when the bombs fell. Japan intended to deliver a declaration of war 30 minutes before the attack, but translation delays meant the message arrived after bombs were already falling. This timing made the attack appear treacherous, even though war was imminent either way. Number 85. Conspiracy theories have claimed Roosevelt knew about the attack and allowed it to happen to justify war. Declassified documents show this is false. Intelligence suggested Japan would attack somewhere in the Pacific, but Pearl Harbor was considered too distant and too well defended to be a realistic target. The failure was one of imagination, not conspiracy. Number 86. After the war, Pearl Harbor became a symbol. For Americans, it represented the cost of unpreparedness. For the military, it justified massive peacetime defense spending. No more Pearl Harbors became doctrine. It shaped 70 years of American strategy. Number 87. The attack is studied in military academies worldwide as a textbook example of operational surprise. The planning, deception and execution were nearly flawless. The strategic failure was political. Japan won the battle but lost the war in the same moment. Number 88. Modern Pearl Harbor has been rebuilt. The naval base remains operational and is home to the U.S. Pacific Fleet headquarters. Submarines, destroyers and cruisers dock where battleships once burned. The harbour is active, busy, alive, a defiant answer to those who tried to destroy it. Number 89. Tourism has complicated Pearl Harbor's memory. Visitors pose for selfies at the Arizona Memorial. Gift shops sell Pearl Harbor souvenirs. Some veterans find this disrespectful. Others believe it's better than being forgotten. Number 90. Japanese tourists visit Pearl Harbor in large numbers. Many leave with tears in their eyes. The memorial does not glorify either side, it mourns the dead. Some Japanese visitors leave origami cranes. Others write apologies in 70 End of Naughting. The guest book. Reconciliation is slow, but it's real. Number 91. In 1991, on the 50th anniversary, Japanese and American veterans met at Pearl Harbor for a joint ceremony. Some shook hands, others embraced. A few refused to attend. The wounds were old but not healed. Time does not cure everything. Number 92. The USS Missouri, the battleship on which Japan signed the surrender documents in 1945, is now a museum ship berthed at Pearl Harbor. It sits just 500 yards from the Arizona Memorial. The first and last bookends of the Pacific War face each other across the water. Number 93. Every Pearl Harbor survivor interviewed says the same thing. They were terrified. Hollywood depicts heroes. Survivors describe chaos, confusion, and the desperate scramble to survive. Heroism wasn't the starting point, it was what happened after fear. Number 94. The attack could have been worse. If the Japanese had launched a third wave targeting fuel tanks, dry docks, and repair facilities, Pearl Harbor would have been unusable for years. Yamamoto considered it but decided the risk wasn't worth it. That decision may have cost Japan the war. Number 95. Some of the same aircraft that attacked Pearl Harbor returned to strike other targets across the Pacific. Japanese fighters and bombers hit Wake Island, Guam, the Philippines, Malaya and Singapore in coordinated strikes within hours of Pearl Harbor. It was a brilliantly executed offensive and Japan's high water mark. Number 96. The Philippines suffered heavier casualties than Pearl Harbor. Over 3,000 American and Filipino soldiers were killed in the Japanese invasion. But Pearl Harbor became the symbol because it was American territory and because it was filmed and photographed. Images define memory. Number 97. The wreckage at Pearl Harbor is still being explored. In 2016, researchers discovered that the Arizona's hull is corroding faster than expected. Estimates suggest it may collapse entirely within 50 years. Plans are being developed to preserve the site after the ship disintegrates. Number 98. The oil leaking from the Arizona, the tears, will stop when the fuel tanks finally rupture and release all their contents at once. When that happens, the harbour will be briefly coated in oil, a final scar from a wound 8 decades old. Number 99. Pearl Harbor veterans are gone or leaving. The youngest survivor is in his late 92nds. Within a decade, perhaps less, there will be no living memory of that Sunday morning. History will become fully history, no longer testimony. Number 100. More than 900 sailors remain entombed in the Arizona. Their names are engraved on a marble wall at the memorial. Every day, thousands of people read those names aloud, one after another, keeping them alive in the only way left. Number 101. By nightfall on the 7th of December 1941, 2,403 Americans were dead, 8 battleships were sunk or damaged, and a nation that wanted peace found itself at war. The attack lasted 110 minutes. The consequences lasted 4 years, claimed 75 million lives worldwide, and reshaped the global order for the next 80 years. Pearl Harbor didn't start World War II, but it brought America into it, and that made all the difference.